My beloved child, I see you. Yes, I see the tension you carry between what you believe and what you feel, between what your spirit knows is true and what your emotions scream in moments of weakness. And I want to say to you with love so deep it breaks every lie. Your feelings are real, but they are not always right, and that's why I'm coming to speak directly to your heart today. Because I am Jesus, the one who walked on water and walked through walls, the one who wept in Gethsemane and rose from the tomb, the one who knows what it feels like to be overwhelmed, misunderstood, rejected, exhausted. And yet I did not quit, and neither will you, because faith is not about never feeling pain. It's about believing my word. Even when your emotions beg you to walk away, and I know that in your nation right now, across homes, schools, hospitals, churches, so many are overwhelmed, weary, disappointed, and you feel like you've prayed and nothing happened, like you've tried and failed again, like you've held on but nothing changed, and your emotions whisper, "It's not worth it. Just give up." But I tell you, child, this is the very place where faith shines brightest, not in comfort, but in crisis, not in ease, but in endurance. And I want you to see how even I, your Savior, battled emotion. Remember in Luke 22:42, when I cried out, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me." Yet I followed with, "Not my will, but yours be done." Because surrender is stronger than sorrow, and obedience is greater than emotion. And I need you to know that quitting is never the answer when I am the one who called you. And I called you not because of how strong you felt, but because of how much I loved you. And I want to anchor you in truth today. That faith is not a feeling. It's a decision to trust me even when your emotions storm like wind and waves. Because feelings are like weather. They change. They come and go. But I, the Lord your God, do not change. Malachi 3:6. And my promises are not fragile. They don't depend on your mood. They are everlasting, sealed in my blood, and built on the solid rock of my word. And I want you to remember that even when your feelings say, "I'm too tired," I say, "Come to me, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. And when your feelings say, "I'm not enough," I say, "My grace is sufficient for you." 2 Corinthians 12:9. And when your feelings say, "It's over," I say, "I am the resurrection and the life." John 11:25. And I think of Carla from North Carolina, who was on the edge of giving up her ministry after losing her husband to cancer, her savings to debt, and her confidence to grief. But she heard me whisper one morning, "You're still anointed, and though she didn't feel strong, she stood up, kept preaching, kept praying, and now her testimony has reached over 1 million hearts online. Not because she felt strong, but because she followed me anyway. And I want that same perseverance in you, child. Not because I demand perfection, but because I treasure your persistence. And every time you choose faith over feelings, heaven celebrates, angels surround you, and miracles are set in motion. And don't think that emotions disqualify you. Even David, a man after my own heart, cried out in despair, asking, "Why, Lord, do you hide yourself in times of trouble?" Psalm 10:1. Yet still he praised me. Still he wrote songs. Still he clung to hope. Because emotions may shake your heart, but faith steadies your soul. And right now, I want to steady you. I want to remind you that what you're walking through is not the end of your story. It's the part where I train your spirit, deepen your roots, build your endurance, because one day you'll tell others, I almost quit, but I chose Jesus. And that testimony will be a bridge to someone else's breakthrough. And I think of Mark in Texas, a recovering addict who relapsed after 9 months clean, and he felt worthless, ashamed, like all his progress was gone. But he reached out to me in his truck, crying, "Jesus, I can't feel you, but I still believe." And child, that moment was more powerful than 1,000 sermons because that is what faith looks like. Not quitting when everything screams quit. Not giving in to the lie that one failure defines your forever. And I met Mark in his pain, and I rebuilt his life, and now he leads others into recovery through my name. Because my grace is not based on how you feel. It's based on who I am. And I am still the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. And I say to you now, don't let your emotions dictate your destiny. Don't let today's weakness cancel tomorrow's promise. Don't let a bad moment become a life-defining decision. Because if you stay close to me, if you keep walking, if you keep saying yes, even when you feel no, I will reward your faith. I will renew your strength, and I will lead you to places you can't even imagine, because I see the end from the beginning, and while you see tears now, I see triumph ahead. While you feel confusion now, I see clarity forming, and while your feelings fluctuate, my hand stays steady, my love stays constant, and my plan stays intact. So child, even when emotions say quit, let your faith shout louder. I follow Jesus still. And now, my precious child, as we continue this journey of faith over feelings, I want you to understand this eternal truth. Your emotions are valid, but they are not your master. Because I did not call you to be led by emotional storms, but by my Spirit. And too often you've measured your progress by how you feel, rather than by how faithful I've been. But child, your progress isn't based on how loud your praise is, but how firm your yes remains when no one is watching. And I know this generation has been taught to follow feelings, to trust the vibe, to obey the heart. But my word says in Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful above all things. And I want you to know that when your feelings are unsteady, I remain the rock beneath your feet. And even when your tears fall, I catch everyone in my bottle, Psalm 56:8. And even when you say, Jesus, I can't, I say, but I can through you. Because Philippians 4:13 is still true. You can do all things through Christ who gives you strength, and I'm not just your comfort. I am your strength. I am your clarity. I am your stability when your emotions try to toss you from one wave to another. And I think of Joanna from Pennsylvania, a youth counselor who kept showing up for hurting teens even when she was battling anxiety herself, who once cried in her car every morning before walking into the building. But she didn't quit, because every day she chose to trust me over her feelings, and now, years later, dozens of those teens have come to know me because of her obedience, not her perfection. And I want you to see the same in your life, that your feelings may fluctuate, but your faith can remain planted. And every time you say, I believe, even with a whisper, even through tears, I receive it like thunder in heaven. And child, your emotions may scream, it's not working. But heaven is moving behind the scenes because faith is not always instant. It's a seed. And every time you trust me when your feelings say quit, that seed grows roots, and those roots make you unshakable. And that's why I sometimes allow the storm to grow what's invisible, to build the kind of faith that doesn't crack when you get denied, delayed, or discouraged. And I know that some of you watching this have felt unworthy, unlovable, forgotten. Like you're always the encourager, but no one sees your pain, and you've said, God, where are you when I'm the one falling apart? But I'm right here, closer than the breath in your lungs, and I want you to lean on me. Not when you feel strong, but when you feel weakest. Because that's when my strength is perfected. 2 Corinthians 12:9. And I think of Anthony in Detroit, who battled suicidal thoughts after his business failed, who couldn't feel my presence and almost gave up. But one night as he lay on his couch crying out, Jesus, are you even real? He opened his Bible and saw John 6:68. Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. And he realized that even when everything else crumbled, I remained. And child, that's the message today. Feelings will fluctuate, but I remain. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. And I do not leave when your feelings lie. And even when your soul says, there's no hope, I say, I am your living hope. And if you stay with me, I will carry you into your calling, into deeper peace, into real joy. Not the joy that comes from circumstances, but the joy that flows from me, the joy that becomes your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. And I want you to begin talking back to your feelings, not denying them, but declaring the truth over them, saying, I feel tired, but God says I'm renewed. I feel afraid, but God says fear not. I feel stuck, but God says He makes a way in the wilderness. And that's how you win this war, not by pretending the emotions aren't there, but by choosing to let my truth lead anyway. Because when Peter stepped out of the boat, he felt the wind. He saw the waves. But his faith kept him walking. And even when he began to sink, I didn't let him drown. I reached out and pulled him up. And I'm doing the same for you, child, even now, even here. Even as you're watching this, I am reaching for your hand, pulling you out of despair, out of doubt, out of the lie that you've failed too many times. And I'm saying, let's walk together again. Because when you walk by faith, even when your feelings scream, stop, miracles happen, healing flows, purpose awakens, and you'll look back and say, that was the moment I didn't quit, and God took over. And one day your testimony will unlock someone else's freedom. And I say again, don't be afraid to feel, but don't be ruled by what you feel, because your faith is your compass, your trust is your weapon, and I'm proud of you. Not for never doubting, but for staying even when you did. Not for never crying, but for trusting me through the tears. And I promise, child, this is not the end. This is the place where the next chapter begins. And now, from my heart to yours, and now, my child, let me speak directly to the version of you that wants more. Not just more comfort, but more clarity, more consistency, more of me. Not just in high moments, but in daily moments, because true spiritual maturity is not found in feelings that rise and fall, but in roots that go deep. And I want to invite you to deeper ground, where your joy doesn't evaporate in hard seasons, where your obedience is no longer tied to emotions but to eternal truth. And this is where transformation truly begins. Not by running from your feelings, but by recognizing them and then submitting them to me, saying, Jesus, I feel weak, but I still choose you. And that choice becomes the seed of growth that hell cannot uproot and storms cannot steal. And child, this is how I grow you. Not by removing all hardship, but by forming strength inside you. And I want you to think about my servant Paul, who was beaten, shipwrecked, imprisoned, left for dead, but still said, none of these things move me. Acts 20:24. Because he had grown beyond emotional dependence and into kingdom dependence, and I want the same for you. To know that even if your emotions are loud, my voice can still be louder. If you make space for me to speak, if you put my word in front of your feelings and let truth set your path. And I think of Alicia in California, who started a women's Bible study from her kitchen table even though she was battling postpartum depression and loneliness. She didn't feel like a leader, didn't feel qualified, didn't even feel spiritual, but she said yes anyway, and now that small group has multiplied into dozens of groups across 3 states, because she led from faith, not feelings. And I want you to know that every yes you give me from the middle of your mess is an act of war against darkness. And every time you choose me over quitting, you release light into the world. And your children, your friends, your future generations will benefit from your spiritual boldness because faith is contagious. And I'm raising up warriors in this generation who know how to fight. Not with swords, but with surrender. Not with perfection, but with persistence. Not with loudness, but with obedience, and I am calling you into that army. Not to impress me, but to trust me. Not to prove yourself, but to position yourself. Because I'm building something unshakable inside you. And yes, you'll still feel things. You'll feel tired, discouraged, frustrated. But those feelings will no longer lead you, because your foundation will be faith. And that's what separates shallow Christians from disciples, believers from builders. And you are called to build faith, peace, prayer, love, endurance, generosity, and wisdom. And the more you grow, the more your feelings will serve your faith instead of sabotage it. And this is what I mean in Romans 12:2 when I say, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Because when your thoughts are renewed, your feelings begin to align with truth. And even when they don't, you'll be so rooted in me that you'll walk forward anyway. And I say this with joy and compassion. I am proud of you for still listening. Proud of you for still seeking. Proud of you for wanting to grow even though it hurts sometimes. Because growth often comes through fire, but it produces gold. And I'm refining you like gold, polishing you like a diamond, planting you like a tree beside living water. Psalm 1:3. And your leaves will not wither. Your fruit will be abundant, and people will come to your life and taste the fruit of peace, love, joy, and truth. And know that I did it, not because you always felt like it, but because you stayed when quitting felt easier. And now, child, as I close this message to your heart, I ask you once more, don't keep this to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear my voice today, and ask them to subscribe to God's sacred voice, because I will keep speaking through this space, pouring out living water, awakening dry bones, lifting weary hearts, and empowering my children to rise above feelings and walk by faith, strong, steady, and victorious.